Hello everybody, I am doing another video. It seems that the people on YouTube seem to enjoy these videos, so I'm doing this just for you guys and for the people on YouTube because they seem to enjoy me waffling on, or at least it seems so. So as always, I will waffle on until someone asks me any questions, and I will do my best to answer them. You can ask anything from, ancient aliens, ghosts, and the usual stuff that you can ask me about. So I'll waffle on. So I was just going to talk a bit about the Marvel movie with Thor. And we all know he's a Norse god from Asgard, and the giant that created his. I don't know if you remember the dwarf giant, which is kind of ironic, really. In the movie, and that created his weapon. Now that's actually based on true mythology or true history, whichever way you look at it. But it wasn't a giant dwarf; it was actually a dwarf. Now the story goes that the dwarf dwarves created the special weapons that could do magical stuff, but the question is, were they really dwarfs or little people, or were they little greys? Now the reason why I say that is because obviously we don't have dwarfs that can create magical lightning bolts coming from hammers and these sort of things, whereas the little greys could. Now in the timeline of when the Norse gods were around, in my calculations, the little greys were around as well. With the tall whites, not the Zeta Reticuli greys, but the android type greys. So it would make more sense that the little dwarfs are actually, considering if you think that the Norse gods are possibly the Anunnaki still. Just they move around. Bearing in mind they live for hundreds of thousands of our years, and obviously they moved to Rome, they moved to Egypt, they moved to Greece, and so on. So to go to another place to become sort of the Viking gods, so to speak, isn't too far fetched. And if we remember that they're between 8 to 10, possibly even 12 foot tall, some of them. Then looking at a little alien grey would be classed as a dwarf. So I have a feeling that it's probably the little greys that were helping them with these weapons in return for something that they got back. And when I say little greys, I'm on about... sorry, someone's asked me a question. Okay, a couple of people. Okay, someone's mentioned biorobots. That's probably referring to the greys. Yes, I don't know. I never really know how to describe them really. Biorobots is quite good, Paul. Yeah, I guess you could call them that. But it's not just the tall greys, the whites and that have these little biorobots. Apparently, recently I heard that the secret American complex has now managed to create them as well, which would make sense because that's what they do. They will try and weaponize or find ways to do things that. So if they've managed to capture one or two of these little greys, or with the help of the little greys themselves, could have created these little army of. So now when you're abducted, you don't know now whether or not you're abducted by American little greys or proper little greys. So it becomes hard work. The P391s, where do giants live? So there's a really good question. Technically, there's not many giants left now. If there is, there was the Kandahar, I think it was called Kandahar Desert Incident, where they're in mountains. A lot of the stories say that they're in mountains. They hide out in mountains. I guess that would be a place less populated, so that would make sense. I'm sure you've heard the story of well, if you haven't, I'll be very brief. The story, two individual people at two different times have reported this. So one was a helicopter pilot, and one was one of the army people that went into one of these caves in Afghanistan and came across this 12, 13 foot giant. I think it might have been taller than that, and it had some sort of spear with it, and went to attack the army people, and of course the army people shot it dead. And then that's when the helicopter pilot also, separately gave information on that as well. So it was going back a few years, but the information came out fairly recently, last couple of years. So giants, if there is any left, they would probably still be hiding. But how many is left? I was surprised that one even was still around. So I can't imagine there being too many giants left, which is kind of sad. But then when you think that the stories go that the giants actually eat people and drink their blood, then probably it's not so sad. But and those giants would have possibly been the Nephilim, which is basically just another name for the offshoot of the or offspring, shall we say, of the Anunnaki and the human women, which is quite sad for the human women, I would have thought. Zimbabwe UFO. Now, is that the one where the school saw it? I'm just trying to remember, because there's obviously a lot of UFO, there's so many different UFO stories. I'm just trying to think if that's the one with the school. If it is, a really interesting story, that one. I think it dates from the 70s. School kids saw this thing land at the back of their school, and they all run over to the fence. Supposedly, one of the kids that's now grown up, she was on Coast to Coast AM, talking about her incident, and when one of the little greys walked over to her, she had some sort of telepathic connection with it, and the teachers also, some of the teachers also saw it. If that's the same one you're referring to, and then eventually took off. So the woman that had the telepathic thing was basically told as a kid, look after your planet, which is makes me think then it was probably the Zeta Reticuli as opposed to the little greys, because it's the story goes that the Zetas are the ones that keep trying to help us, compared to the little greys that seem to just want our DNA and create hybrids from us. Okay, so the Peps wrote, I thought the greys were the good guys. So yeah, so there's different types of greys out there. In fact, there's more than the ones I'm just talking about now, but I'll just use the Orion greys, which are the bio androids, for want of a better word. And then you've got the Zeta Reticuli. Now there's other greys as well, because other races have also, including the military now, have also created these type of greys. So for whatever reason, the greys seem to be a very easy thing to create and manipulate. So the good guys really are the Zeta Reticuli greys, which is why there's so many confusions, because obviously some people get abducted and have bad experiences, and then you get the other people that get abducted and they're trying to teach them all sorts of things from their own language. Yeah, people do actually get taught their language. So if you want me to waffle on about that particular case, it's really fascinating. But so the Zetas, as well as the Pleiadians, etc., are all trying to wake us up and say, look after your planet, don't nuke it, look after each other, trying to raise our awareness, trying to raise our spiritualness. And then you've got the little robots with the tall whites that have been seen also with Bigfoots and with humans or humanoids. So it could be Nordics or Aryans, or it's hard to say, because obviously the eyewitnesses all basically just say they look like human. Some of the humans were wearing capes, so we know it wouldn't normally be a normal human, because I doubt if any of the army people would want to wear a cape. And there are also, some of them have been seen with the praying mantises, and the praying mantises are the ones that are pretty much in control of the tall whites, who's in control of the little robot ones, but sometimes they have been known to be seen with the Dracos as well. And they're the reptilian type, the bad reptilian type. So I'm not saying they're doing bad things. So my analogy would be, if you take a cat to a vet's, the cat will think you're really bad because you're taking the cat somewhere and it's having an operation, but it doesn't understand what the operation is, and it just thinks that you've done something really bad to it. And that's the same as us. They're taking us, they're doing something for their own purpose, not necessarily for ours, but we don't understand it. So to them it's fine, but to us it's, hey, you've just done whatever you've done to us, which is generally with those, it's the hybrid. But they kind of finished now, I think. You don't hear many stories of people getting abducted as much and becoming pregnant and getting the baby taken at a certain trimester, I think it's called. You don't hear many of those stories, which means to me that they've now done as much as they can, bearing in mind they've been here for thousands of years. Not as long as the Anunnaki, I wouldn't have said. What do you know about Agatha? So that's the Inner Earth city. So there was one person that I'd listened to a while back, and he said he actually went in there with a colleague of his, and this is just his version. So he went in there. There was a race. They're living there happily. They have technology to fly it about, up in our atmosphere and whatever, possibly into space. But they try and choose not to. They like making music. They're, I guess if you try and think back to some old films where there's these sort of a race where they're just, I guess like Star Trek and Stargate. If you remember an old race that was happy, like the Nox. If you ever watched Stargate, there's a race called the Nox. They were highly intelligent and had the ability to become sophisticated, but they sort of choose not to, which is up to them. So this basically, there was an Inner Earth this character said he'd been to, and they were really nice. They asked him not to sort of divulge too much information when he came back to Earth, to the top. So that's his version of it. Then you've got other people's versions where Emery Smith says that he's been to the Inner Earth. He comes across sort of living plants that will attack you like an octopus legs, but he never mentioned any, when pressed, he was never mentioned that there was any actual humanoids or sentient beings down there. But then I saw a trailer of him on another program, and he was talking about seeing little alien type creatures down there. So there's a lot of stories out there, and you just have to kind of pick the ones that and listen. So the way I sort of work is logic, obviously. If it makes sense, then go with that. If it doesn't make sense, then put it in your back pocket for a bit until someone comes along. And then I kind of wait for at least 2 or 3 people to say the same sort of thing. So where Emery Smith was talking about working on the Space Force, you had Corey Good also saying the same thing. So now you've got 2 people saying that they both worked on the lunar missions, which were basically on Mars as well as the moon. So going back to the inner city, it's possible. There's just too many different versions out there at the moment from different people saying different things. So, I mean, yes, you can go back to the Admiral Byrd thing, and you can say about the Nazis that were in Antarctica in an ancient alien base that was showed to them by the Aryans or possibly by the Dracos. So you could argue, well, is that an inner city? Technically, no, it was a base, so that's not really... I know you could say, well, Admiral Byrd said that there was grass and plants and stuff there. Yes, that's fine, but that's probably still not the inner Earth. I wouldn't have thought. Although some people say that you know, both the poles have access to get to the inner Earth, so maybe the ancient base, alien base, that was deliberately set there because they could get to the inner Earth. So there's a whole load of things, and the guy that I was talking about did say that he got to it through one of the poles. Can't remember north or south, but he went down and walked down it, and described that, as you know, if you flew over it, you wouldn't see this massive hole in the ice. It's just designed some way that you can't see. I don't know. It's a lot of stories out there. I would suggest that there's probably certainly gaps in Earth. You know, if we're all made up of lumps of rock that got stuck together hundreds of thousands, millions of years, billions of years ago, then there's probably huge gaps underneath, massive gaps. Because if you know, how big is an asteroid? Could be massive. So you know, you get 10 of those sticking to the core, and then there's probably massive gaps, which is. So yeah, hopefully that kind of answers your question from my point of view. I just think there's possibly something down there, and you know, there's also the story of the lizards as well. The lizard people that are indigenous to here, to Earth, and they came along after the dinosaurs. So there's a hell of a lot of stories out there, but nothing concrete. And even Admiral Byrd's diary is, you know, there's rumours that was real. No one's actually got it, so at this point it's still all up in the air. 1966 West All UFOs school sighting. I'm sorry, is that the I'm trying to remember, is that the Zimbabwe one I was talking about? It's the same person that wrote it, so probably was the one that I was talking about. Thank you. Yeah, it was 1966. I thought it was 70s, but maybe, yeah, probably was 66. So apologies, but well done. Thank you. Just going to scroll down. So the person that mentioned the Zimbabwe, 65 kids in Zimbabwe, this is what he wrote, saw 3 craft, about 5 aliens. This story should be in mainstream. Yeah, the kids actually drew pictures as well of what they saw the next day. I think it was around, or same day or something like that, the day after, and they've still got the pictures. And a lot of the pictures are very, very, very similar. Obviously, kids, you know, drawings probably weren't great, but they all pretty much drew the same thing. So yeah, you're definitely right. It should have been. There was a film documentary maker that was actually making a documentary on this. This was about a year ago, but obviously with all this COVID stuff, I think he might not have finished it. Unless you know if he has, I'd be very interested. But yeah, he went and interviewed all these people and everything. So he was trying to get that story out there. Okay, just rolling on now. Sorry. The East African man's wrote, nothing you can believe comes out of Zim. I'm guessing you're referring to Zimbabwe. And then goes back to the gentleman, Chef. I'll just call you Chef if that's okay, because these usernames sometimes. He's wrote, black outfits, no teacher story. Well, that, according to the woman that I was listening to, she did say there was a teacher. A lot of them were in the break room, but there was one teacher that was out in the playground, according to her, and this teacher saw it. But yes, I understand that the other ones were in the break room, and they didn't see it, and that's why they was asked to draw it. But there was, from memory, that woman said, or the girl said, that there was a teacher in the playground with them, because obviously, you know, there probably would have had to have been a teacher in the playground as usual. Now I know there was another area to that where the younger kids were. So whether or not she recalls seeing it, but the younger girl says that there was the girl said there was a teacher there. So Chef's just wrote just the kids. Well, I'll be interested to see the documentary because I recall her saying that there was a teacher there, but I might be wrong. Billy Mopeds wrote small greys artificial life form. Yes, so I sort of covered that slightly earlier on this live chat, but basically there's many different types of greys, but there is android type ones, artificial life forms. They are life forms, but they've got computery stuff in them. It's hard to describe because obviously it's a lot more technical than what we know of for androids. Lou Robinson's asked Argotha. I did sort of cover that earlier. Someone else asked the same question, so I don't want to go over it because otherwise everyone's going to hear me waffling on the same sort of stuff again. So apologies for that, but I will put this on YouTube if you want to hear what my thoughts are on it. I did go on for probably five odd minutes talking about that. So this will go on YouTube tonight, and then you can whiz back. It's right near the beginning of the hour, so you can hear that. Saint James has wrote, I used to believe all these things too. My search for the truth brought me to Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, if that, I'm just going from my own research. I believe there was someone called Jesus, or well, not that wasn't obviously the real name, but I believe there was someone, but I believe it was a hybrid, just because of the similarities, for example, between Noah and being born the way he was born, the colour of the skin, the fact that their eyes lit up the room, and all the same descriptions. Then you've got the star that the three wise men followed, could have been a UFO, and actually the best place to actually look is I can't remember the guy's name, but I can tell you a book. The book's called Black Ops, Aliens, Spirits, Bigfoot, and Our Untold History. In the back of that book, it's got the absolute correct translation back from the original Hebrew text of what it says about Jesus being born compared to the Bible. It's fascinating. So basically it says, and I'm now going to paraphrase because I don't have it exactly in front of me, but basically it says, I'm just going to paraphrase, Mary was beamed up, I'm just paraphrasing, but beamed up against her will, the might of the force of the, or might, something like that, the words were, of the Lord, but it wasn't Lord, would impregnate her and send her back down. And the whole thing, literally, you have to go read it, the whole thing reads like an alien abduction. If you go and listen to anyone else that's been abducted, they'll tell you the same thing, that this was. So obviously that's the original translation of it, proper translation. It was done by was it a priest, I think. He went back and reread it and translated it, got it translated absolutely spot on, and now it makes more sense. And then you read obviously the Bible versions, and it's been changed as it shouldn't have been changed, because if you go back to the Book of Enoch, where it says you shouldn't change anything that I write, of course humans are humans, they will change it, and they've changed it to suit themselves. So I can't remember that guy's name, I wish I could, but have a look for that book. I think it tells the guy's name in it, but he has basically translated the whole of the Bible, the original text, should we say, not the Bible, and everything oh wow, it's literally like reading a totally different book. So that's my thoughts on it. But once obviously if you go with the Bible, then that's your version of it, but I kind of go with the guy that retranslated it to the original without any biased, unlike the Bibles had. So yeah, okay, so moving on. Mac has wrote, did you hear one missile at the Navy base was completely disarmed by a UFO? Yeah, so it's not just one. They've done it loads of times. In fact, I don't know if you're aware, we were so close to World War III. I know I've said this on another live chat, but I'll be really quick. But basically, reports from up above, so basically these missiles in the States were underground, and then you've got underground, you've got the people that control the missiles, so they're hidden deep down. And above, up in the top, there was a UFO flying over where these hidden missiles are. You know, the missiles are actually hidden underneath a mechanical door. So this UFO comes flying over and starts firing these beams down at it. And it actually starts to set the warheads off, ready to send a rocket to somewhere, a location, automatically. It's amazing. So the people underneath in the bunker part that control the missiles start seeing all these lights flashing, and it gives coordinates, and it was going to fire them off to bloody Russia. So they're panicking like mad because they have no idea what's happening above. They don't know about the UFO because it wasn't the people up there didn't communicate down to the people down below. So they're panicking. They're trying to obviously disarm it and stop it and everything else. But at the same time, in Russia, same thing was happening. Another UFO was, but we didn't know all this at the time. It was in the 80s, I think. You know, Russia didn't know what was happening. America didn't know what was happening. So it was basically, it was going to be cut long, very long story short. Right at the last minute before the rockets were launched, the UFO switched them completely off and made them. In fact, I think, if from memory, they destroyed the circuit board by using this beam of light, which obviously amazing. And out comes the bunker people and get told what's happened, and years later the story comes out, and then the people from Russia come out and say their story, and it was like, wow, that was bloody close. So yeah, they do it a lot, and the reason they do it for nukes, a couple of reasons, but one is I believe that the nukes actually can destroy souls, which are the spirits that's inside us, and they don't like that. There's been some reports from abductees and contactees that have said that, so that's why I sort of believe that. And the other side of it is obviously we're destroying the planet, and the other one would be, it's possible they open a rift, because the first one that they done back in New Mexico, first nuke that they ever tested, it wasn't till then that we had more of these craft coming into our vicinity. You could argue that the craft will come in here because we've now got the nuke technology, but some people say that we actually open up an interdimensional rift, which allowed other aliens to come through, and these other aliens probably ain't so nice that we would want them to come through. So that could be three reasons there why the aliens do stop the nukes. But yeah, they've done it many a time. I'm just scrolling down. Lou's asked, where do you believe the entrances are, going back to the inner Earth? Supposedly they're one at North Pole and one at South Pole. That's the only sort of two that I know of. Whereas Emery Smith says that he goes through a portal. So he's not a military person. He's a biologist that works with the military when they need someone to go along and look at aliens, look at plants, that kind of stuff. So he's seen many different types of aliens, including mermaid types. So his take on it is that he goes, with a team in sort of hazmat type suits through this portal that's artificially created by the American government, or secret government on missions into the inner Earth. So he gets to it that way, as opposed to the entrances in North and South Pole. So make of that as you will. I don't, I'm on the fence on all of that at the moment, but I'll just give the information out there. Slamming has wrote, Starlink satellites are not for the internet, they're homing beacons for the rest of the alien kind. I struggle with that only because if aliens so in order for, I'm just using logic here, so in order for an alien race to know we're here, they would either A, already know we're here, or B, find us using, as you say, a homing beacon. Now, if they already know we're here, then they kind of wouldn't need, they're not daft. They wouldn't need the homing beacon. So if we're attracting aliens that we don't know already by using the homing beacon, that would be really dumb. If we're putting a homing beacon out there for anyone to find us, because obviously we've not met them before, because if we've met them, then we wouldn't need to give them a homing beacon because they're smart enough to figure out where we are. But if we've never met them, then we're sending out a signal, which is a really bad idea, dumb idea, to people or races that we don't know. So I struggle with that one. Sorry, I don't think we would do that. That's just my logic take on that. What is Space Force? Lou's asked. So Trump's already done it, but if you go back to Gary McKinnon, who was the guy that hacked into NASA's computers, they tried to extradite him to the States. He'd already whistleblowed and said that he'd hacked in and saw the names of the fleets. So they've already got space fleets up there, different types of space fleets. Small ones and larger ones that do different operations, and he actually saw the names of them. Sadly, he didn't write them down, or so he said. He didn't make any copies, but you've got to wonder, that you've got a guy that hacks into NASA, and then he gets basically let off, and then his mum actually tries to get them to pardon him and stuff, which was quite amazing, but he gets let off. Now, on an interview with richplanet.net, he let slip something which I thought was really clever. So he's actually a very clever guy, this Gary McKinnon, and he kind of let slip that he may have information that if anything happened to him, he would get it released. So it's a bit like the McAfee guy that had his dead man switch. What if he died, information would get out there, and I'm sure Julian Assange probably got the same. So that's what the Space Force is. So basically, the Space Force does various things. They can travel to other galaxies, apparently. They do a lot of mining work on Mars. They do not so much mining now on the moon. It's more Mars, and they go off, and then there's a sort of a peace force as well, part of the Space Force, which is a peace force, and they're the ones sort of the more military types. So instead of the scientists, they've got ones going out. They call them peace, but let's be honest, if we're going out with weapons, American people, I say American because let's be honest, it really, I know they team up and they have teamed up, and there's apparently China's helps them, and Russia and some of the bigger countries help them with personnel and stuff. So it's not just America, but America's the ones that lead the way on this. So yes, the Space Force is real, even though Trump's only just sort of recently said, let's make a thing called Space Force. It's been going for a while, and there's many whistleblowers that have worked on the Space Force, and they work for 20-year tours, and then they come back. I'll be very brief. They come back in time in a cloned body. I've covered this in other live chats. If you want to listen to them, they're on YouTube. So hopefully that kind of covers it. Luz wrote, "It'll be the South Pole." You're referring to getting into the inner Earth. Billy's wrote, "Morning, have you heard of William Mills Tompkins? The name rings a bell, but to be honest, I can't say for sure." Luz wrote, "North is too hard to get to." Yeah, I should imagine both of them are now. What with the military obviously guarding the areas, I know people say it's because it's the edge of the dome, but I don't believe that. I believe that it's because they'd found that, well, obviously the entrance, but they also found in Antarctica the alien crashed, or not crashed, but huge alien ship, massive ship under the ice. 5M has wrote, "I heard the ocean also holds an entrance." I've not heard that, but it's totally possible. Yeah, I mean, it's totally possible because you've got UFOs that go underwater for sure, and to get to the Nazi base, I don't know if this is maybe the same thing you're thinking of, but to get to the Nazi base in Antarctica, they had to use submarines. So during the war, they had these submarines that would be going underneath the ice. So you could class that as underwater to get to it. So I don't know if that's the same thing that you're referring to. But yeah. So I'm just reading this. Yes, okay. So what about the island that comes off the coast of Ireland, comes around every 7 years supposedly? There's a name for it. I was trying to remember it this morning, believe it or not. I still can't remember it. There's a name that they call it, Hy-Brasil. Wow, remembered it. I think it's called Hy-Brasil. So yeah, so the story goes that there's this island, and it dates back actually a long time, 1600s, I think. Don't quote me, but I think 1600 was the first written record of it. And a sailor had or on a ship, sailor had seen this island appear, and then subsequently it sort of disappears, and then subsequently other reports were written about it over the many years, 100 years later or whatever. Another sailor or captain would see it. So yeah, it's supposed to be off the coast of Ireland. Now there is maps out there that actually show it as a circular island, fairly small. So I mean, there's lots of stories like that of islands, not just there, but more in the Bahamas and places like that appear and disappear with mist. There's films that's made similar to that, where there's an island that gets disappeared, but the mist part's the interesting part, because that's what the island near Ireland says that they see. People say that there's sort of like a mist or a fog that covers it. So is it, the other side of that is, it goes underwater and then comes up, when the tide's right. That's the logical answer to it. But no one's actually sort of gone underneath, or that I'm aware of, and looked for it under the ocean. So that's why it's still sort of surrounded a mystery. But I think it was called Hy-Brasil. So excellent question, and I'm kind of glad sorry, you carried on with that. I didn't read the end of it. It was supposed to be Atlantis. Well, technically it's a round location, so you could argue, some could say, well, yes, it's a round island, and the descriptions of Atlantis was round, and it disappears under the water. So you could say, yeah, it's Atlantis. I probably wouldn't have said it was myself. I don't know. I just have a feeling that if there was Atlantis, it was more. I don't know. It could be. I guess I'm probably like everyone going along with the sort of mainstream, where it's sort of more out towards Malta, which is where some people say it is. In nice hot sun. So maybe I'm just thinking of. Lewis wrote, but Atlantis is Göbekli Tepe. I've not heard someone say that, so I don't know the answer to that. I've not heard anyone say that. Per has wrote, I need a seaplane to go to that island probably. Although I'm so far behind on messages, so I'm going to be quick now. Because I don't know what you're referring to there. Luz wrote, the ocean entrance is Bermuda Triangle. Okay, I've not heard that. I've heard that there's a pyramid at the bottom of the Bermuda Triangle, and that pyramid's given off power, which is why planes go over and they lose their electrical equipment, etc. That doesn't actually answer why ships sink, but that would explain the... But as for the entrance, I've not really heard that, so I will keep my ears out. And but thanks for throwing that out there. 5M has wrote to the person that mentioned that there were 3 oceans meet, so possibly that's where, I'm guessing that's where the 3 oceans meet. American Freeze wrote, Starlink is ruining the view of the nighttime sky. That's referring to the other person, I think maybe a different person, that said about their home in Beacon. This story is super interesting. I apologise, Drip. Drips wrote that, and I'm now so far behind, so I'm not sure which story he's interested in. Sorry. But these, if you're interested in these, me waffling on, they are, all my live chats are on YouTube as well as all my videos. So if any of this sort of is interesting, and they're actually turned into podcasts on Spotify. So if you want to drive along and fall asleep, then you can listen to me. I'm just going to whiz past some of the stuff that I've kind of already answered in a roundabout way. A couple of people chatting to themselves. Sorry. Drippers wrote Inner Earth. I've covered Inner Earth a little bit already, I'm afraid, so I don't want to say that again on this chat, but you can watch these on YouTube and hear what I've said about the Inner Earth already. Sorry, I'm just trying to read down. Different people chatting to each other again still. 5M's wrote, I think the Bible is a misled interpretation by the Jesuits. Yeah, well, I mean, to me, I don't know how much you've watched of my videos, but basically, if you go back to the original text, proper original text, where the Bible copies it from, which is the original Book of Enoch, which still is the original. It was the original Bible, and it still is the Ethiopian. They've got a copy of it as the original Bible. So when you go back to that, and you read things like where it says they struggle to get through the firmament because and then you start thinking, okay, maybe it's the atmosphere. Then they say about the stars in the heaven above the firmament. So then you think, okay, well, obviously we can see the stars, so it can't be stars in heaven. So it's probably space. It's just a translation. So above the atmosphere, the stars in space. So when you go back to the original, because obviously the people that wrote the Bible didn't have a clue about what's going on up in space, so they just sort of copied it and changed it. So yes, you're right, they do change things, and of course the people that are in power are the ones that changed it. I mean, the Romans literally butchered the Bible to make sure that their narrative was in it. So yeah, I mean, I would rather go back to the original source and work out what it tried to meant there than a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Yeah, that's just me. So I struggle now with people that say about the Bible, because I try and say to them that just go back to the original source. Don't just listen to people that want to tell you what they want to tell you. Go back to the beginning and research it from there. But not many people bother. 5M wrote, he dies on the cross and rose 3 days. This is about the Son, not Jesus. So I mean, I could spend all day talking about Jesus. We only do things to disinform ourselves, I'm finding. Well, it's not. Yeah, it's not us. It's the people in power, and they're doing it right now. In fact, if you just turn on any news channel right now, you know they're doing it for their own reasons. Bill Gates. Yeah. Ivor has wrote, can you explain the origins of the shadow people? Very good question. I can't. Someone asked me, mentioned, I did a live chat the other day and someone was talking about that they could actually see the shadow people. So briefly, shadow people are literally shadow that people can see, but they're in the shape of a person, so you can't actually see a form. Well, you see the form, but you can't actually see any solid thing. It just literally looks like a shadow. Now, I've not heard them hurt people, so to me, at the moment, my guess is they are interdimensional, so I don't think they're spirits. Spirits are, you know, the light energy or a ghost and things like that, but I don't think the shadow people, I think they're either out of time or out of phase, because they're interdimensional. And I think they're just watchers, really. I've not heard anyone been hurt by them. They obviously scare the bejesus out of you, but they I've not heard of people. Obviously, if someone dies, they can't tell us that they've been killed by a shadow person, but I've not heard any stories of them doing anything bad. So I can only, my guess is interdimensional, coming through to check on us. Brenda's wrote, what do you think about the mechanical elves? Are they real or a figure of our imagination? The mechanical elves, I've not heard of mechanical elves. I know I can waffle on about elves, pixies, smurfs, leprechauns, things like that. So if you're referring, I've not heard of mechanical elves. That's interesting. I'd be interested to know more on that. But the other ones, the ones I just mentioned, I'm right on the fence that they are not necessarily interdimensional, but I think they're on. They're here, but they're not. I mean, I've done stories. I've spoken about stories where people's literally disappeared, but they could see their parents. Like a kid disappears, and they can still see their parent, but the parent now can't see them. So, and this little kid ended up being looked after by the little people. So I think there's it's not a dimension as such. I think there's just an overlap here on Earth. Maybe everywhere, but certainly here on Earth, I think there's an overlap where these leprechauns, because they're all over the world. You know, they're not just in Ireland, for example. They're named different names in different countries and stuff. So I think they're here, but just sort of out of phase. And so we can, you know, once we pass that vile vow, we can't see them, but they can still see us, which would make a lot of sense if, you know, you believe those old stories of what they did and stuff like that. Operation High Jump. Just trying to remember now which operation that is. I've got a billion operations in my head. Just give me a clue which one that was. Forgive me, sorry. 5M's wrote, Smokey Joe, my name, sorry. No way, Smokey Joe, I'll try and remember that. Captain Bird, yeah, Admiral Bird in the end. Brenda's wrote Captain Bird. Yeah, so he was very quickly... Smokey Joe's also wrote Captain Bird, definitely need more on that. So he actually, I don't know if you're aware, he actually went to both North and South Pole. He was an explorer. There's an interview with him out there. It's black and white, and he's talking about how I think it's Antarctica had lush green grass, which is, you know, goes inside with, you know, the inner Earth, because he was flying his plane off of a ship, and it got tractor beamed into this massive entrance in Antarctica. Cut a long story short, he was warned and said, by the Nazis, and said, look, you know, we have this technology, do not come back here, blah blah blah. So of course he goes straight back to the Americas, the what do you call it, the government, tells them what's going on, and of course the government turns around and says, right, we'll take every ship we can find and send it back there. And there's actually a video out there of the someone, well, when I say video, it was shot on film, but it's now a video. There's footage out there of their actual mission, but of course they didn't say what their mission was. They pretended that they was just doing an exploration of Antarctica, but really we know that they sent all those ships and planes and everything out there, on top of the ships and tanks even on the planes. So they went back to Antarctica to literally fight these Nazis that have the ability to fly in UFOs and can fly from pole to pole in a matter of a minute. So of course they lost, and they came back heavily defeated. Lots of people died, and Admiral Byrd wrote about that in his diary, to try and get the information out there. But obviously then what happened after that was the UFO over, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Battle of LA, where there was a spacecraft come over, and you can see the photographs of it where the military was trying to shoot this thing down, and it was in the papers and everything, and they couldn't shoot it down obviously because it had a warp type, for want of a different word, but it had a bubble around it, which is what causes the anti-gravity. So when you shoot it, you're not actually ever going to hit it. So yeah, that craft, the Battle of LA, was actually supposedly the Nazis coming over to say to America or the government, listen, this is what we can do. Do not attack us anymore, or try and attack us. Otherwise, we will take you out. Because if you can't shoot our UFO, then you ain't going to hope against us. So in the end, what happened was the American met up with the Nazis, and they agreed a coalition because the Nazis had run out of people, talented people. So the Americans said, okay, we'll give you our people. In return, you let us work with you and learn some of the technology. So that become that coalition between the two of them. Now, the Nazis were already on the moon at this point, so once the Americans joined in and was allowed to help with the Nazis, the Americans ended up on the moon with the Nazis, and thus the story. So hopefully that gives you some insight. Bo G has wrote, that's here in Ireland, see it every 7 years. Do you actually see the island? That's the Hy-Brasil I was talking about earlier. I'd be fascinated to know if it really does sort of disappear and whether you can see it or not. I haven't got 7 years to wait till it comes back. So what do you think is going on in Antarctica? So that's from EGP. So basically, supposedly there was underneath the ice 10, 15 years ago, whatever it was, the military found a massive, I mean, people quote it as a city-sized UFO. And it's not UFO because it's not flying, but an alien craft that's buried under the ice, and it's been there possibly millions of years, which is why it's ended up under the ice. So they're there doing their bits and pieces research on it, so they block anyone. That's why there's no fly zones, etc. over Antarctica. Supposedly about 8-9 years ago, all the world leaders ended up going there. They all pretended that they had some reason or other. There's some good researchers out there that actually tracked all the movements of all these presidents and stuff, and there's a few whistleblowers that said yes, they definitely came to Antarctica to have a look around. And from there, some of them, the world leaders, were taken up to the moon in the TR-3Bs. No one knows what they were doing going to the moon, but now there was another version. When I say another version, it could have been the same version, but no one else had mentioned this. There was actual battle above a space battle above the hidden sunk underneath ice craft, and supposedly it was an alien race against us fighting there, and that's when after the battle had finished, that's when the American leaders, the world leaders went over there. So if that's the case, then obviously the world leaders were privy to something going on. I don't know which alien race it was. No one's actually said, but that's the story. BOGs wrote off the coast of Kerry. Yeah, I mean, God, if you could take some pictures, that'd be fascinating. So I've only got 5 minutes left, so I'll try and be as really quick. What's your opinion on the mega detailed crop circle that was received in the UK a few years ago? There's a few mega detailed ones. Are you referring to the one with the picture of the alien, or are you referring to the Arecibo reply? If you could quickly let me know, so I don't want to waffle on about one and then you say no, it's the one with the alien face on it instead of the other one, for example. I'm just going to whiz through. I've literally got 5 minutes left. Will aliens come back soon? No, they're already here. We've got hybrids here, actually, physical hybrids that walk among us. These are the hybrids that the alien little greys have been doing. That's why I say, I think at the beginning of the show, I said I don't think that they're doing so many abductions anymore, because they've done what they needed to do, and there's aliens walking among us. So the only alien invasion we'll see is a fake one from our government. So we're not gonna see any aliens, not unless one crashes accidentally. Antarctica and giants. I've covered Antarctica quite a lot actually in this video. Sorry, that's to Gamais. Apologies if I'm pronouncing it wrong. So if you want to watch this later on this evening, I'll put it on YouTube. Really covered quite a lot on Antarctica. Giants. I did mention some giants, but the giants were real, I believe. Michael Tellinger's got some photographs of some giants and giant fingers and things like that. So instead of wasting time now, go look out Michael Tellinger, and you'll be able to find some good information there. Only because I've got 23 messages I've got to get through in 3 minutes. Have you heard about the pyramid creating electricity? Copper cables run through the Queen's Chamber. Yeah, so the Great Pyramid, I believe, and I'm sure you do, was built as a power source. And the little copper, what people thought were hinges, I think are electrodes to be able to conduct. There was chemicals that actually was put inside the Great Pyramid. Some of the chemicals are still found on the walls. So yeah, definitely that pyramid is definitely, and it still does produce power now at the top of it. As Jason's wrote, as above as below hollow earth. That's there's a saying there. That's correct. Hello from Mars, says Iviaka. Hello. Entity like the Elves. That's going back to the Elves one. Probably not mechanical then. So I've kind of mentioned what I think all these little creatures come from. Sort of another side to Earth. If you just joined, go back and watch this later. I'll put it on YouTube. Hello from Spain. Hi there, Jason. Just whizzing through. Just seen Admiral Byrd's. So Jason's wrote. Just seen Admiral Byrd's study map. See the tunnels go right across the continent. Yeah, I mean that could tie in with some of these loud booms that we hear. I know the military's built. Even in the UK, there's massive underground tunnels with hyper fast trains that they take the personnel from one army base to another. EPJ's wrote Operation High Jump is Captain Bird. So I was too busy trying to think of other things. Yes, so yeah, I've sort of covered That was what it was called. So you're basically trying to help me tell the people. So yeah, so when he went back to Antarctica, that was classed as Operation High Jump. And it was probably end up being called Operation Tail Between the Legs, but sad that people died for the bloody military, isn't it? And people did die. Paul's also wrote the same thing, Operation High Jump. Thank you for refreshing my memory. They say Jason they say the giant's still there, ex-military link. Well, they killed one, didn't they? As I mentioned earlier in this hour, they killed one. Whether or not there's any more, if there isn't, if there is, I would have thought, seeing as they found that one, they would be combing the caves and mountains to try and find more, because they wanted to build a super soldier, the American government, and they were trying to do it from the DNA of the giant skeletons that people would find. That's why you don't see giant skeletons in museums, thanks to the Smithsonian and Rockefellers. So if there was giants, I bet the moment that they found that one in that cave, they would have made a concerted effort to try and find more live ones. Operation High Jump, 5,000 troops, 13 ships and 26 planes. Big operation, yeah, and they lost as well. Jason's replying to someone. Antarctica sounds like a Transformers movie. Yeah, does. TR3B, I thought that was man-made. Yes, it is. That's why I say that the TR3B was the triangle ship that we sometimes see flying around. They've managed to do it as a cloak system now, so you need an infrared or a night vision camera to see the TR3B in all its glory. Otherwise you won't see it in the sky, and some people have filmed it sort of distorting clouds, so you can actually see the triangle shape where it's near a cloud. Yeah, it's man-made, but that's the one that went up and took the leaders of the world to the moon and back. Access to the lizard people, I'll have to cover that on another live chat. I'm so sorry, I've sort of run out of time. Jason's wrote, would be interesting to find out about the Stargate they took from Saddam Hussein. Yeah, apparently they did it at night, didn't they? I could waffle on about that, but I'm out of time. I would love to talk about that one, actually. Not many people's asked about that, so why didn't you come here earlier? There is no top of the pyramid anymore. They thought it was made of gold, which is why it's not there. Yeah, I mean, there is some speculation, but some of the other pyramids are not got gold on it. So the tops, the capstones. So if it was made of gold, then that would make sense, or some metal would make sense for it to have the ability to have energy going straight up, and that's what I think it was doing. I think it was also powering, as well as going left to right power from the pyramid, like Tesla did with his free energy device that he tried to create, or did create. I think that power was actually going up as well into the sky. Just catching up here. Jason wrote, they live glasses. Yeah, I wish we all had they live glasses right now to do with this vaccine stuff, but unfortunately people don't. So I'm out of time, but if you do want to listen to any of this again, it'll be on YouTube, as long with all my other live chats. Thank you very much for some excellent questions. I wish I had so much more time. And there's more questions coming in. I'm so sorry. I wish I'd had more time, but I don't. But thank you, and thank you for saying thank you, Brendan. And I will talk to you all soon. But keep watching my videos, and if you don't like them, I'm sorry. But if you do like them, great. Cheers, guys. Thanks. Bye. Bye.